In this video, we're just going to review our summation notation. So we've got this problem on the board. The directions will generally say evaluate. That means do the math, do the addition. But of course, in order to do the addition, I need to know what numbers it is that I'm adding. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go from the summation notation to writing it out term by term. Okay. Now, you'll notice here my initial index is 2. I mentioned that we don't have to start with an initial index of 1, and this time we're not. The initial index is 2. You'll notice I'm talking about this as the initial index. I'm going to also talk about the initial term. That's because if I say the first term, that makes me think the term of index 1. And if I say the second term, that makes me think the term of index 2, but it also makes me think the one that's after something else. So I'm just going to talk about initial term and initial index. My initial term is the term of index 2. So I'm going to start with an index of 2. I'm just going to write it down here where I've got some more space. I'm going to count until I hit my final index, 5. So 2, 3, 4, 5. And then all of this is my formula for the nth term. You'll notice there are 2 different places where I need to plug in the index. So when n is 2, I'm getting negative 1 squared times 2 plus 1. Now I'll simplify that in a moment, but I'm literally replacing n with whatever that index is. So plus, when n is 3, I'm going to get negative 1 cubed times 3 plus 1. Plus, when n is 4, I'm getting negative 1 to the 4th times 4 plus 1. Plus, when n is 5, negative 1 to the 5th times 5 plus 1. All right, so now let's see what these are. Negative 1 squared is 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Plus. Now, it's possible that you were comfortable not writing this out, but just mentally doing that arithmetic, saying negative 1 squared is 1, and it would be times 3. If you go right to this line, that's fine. I do want to see you writing out what the terms are, but I don't care that you necessarily show me this is literally what I get when I plug in the index and this is the result. It really depends on how comfortable you are with mental arithmetic. All right, here negative 1 cubed is going to be a negative, so I'm going to just write that as minus, and then it's 4. Okay. So I'm adding negative 4. I can go ahead and write that as I'm subtracting 4. Plus, negative 1 to the 4th is positive 1 times 5, so we're adding 5. Plus, negative 1 to the 5th is negative 1, so I'm going to be adding a negative number. I'm just going to rewrite that as subtraction, and I'm subtracting 6. So we've got 3 minus 4 plus 5 minus 6. That is going to be negative 2. Okay. So that would be our final answer. I would want to see, for showing your work, at a minimum, either this line or this line telling me what the individual terms are, and then the final result. All right, I'm going to put a couple up here for you folks to try. So again, the directions are to evaluate. You'll show your work and make your work possible by writing out the sum term by term, and then you'll actually do the addition so that your final answer is just a number. Okay. So let's try the sum as I goes from 0 to 2 of I cubed. Okay. Oh, let's actually make it I cubed plus 1. We'll do that. I cubed plus 1. And let's try the sum as m goes from 5 to 8 of negative 1 to the m plus 1 times m. All right, so pause the video, work out those 2 sums, then tune back in and we'll go over them together. All right, to evaluate this, I can see that my initial index is 0. And I'm going to count until I hit 2. So 0, 1, 2. And I'm just plugging in my index to this formula. So 0 cubed would be 0 plus 1 is 1. Plus 1 cubed is 1 plus 1 is 2. Plus 2 cubed is 8 plus 1 is 9. 1 plus 2 plus 9 is 12. That's our final answer. For this one, my initial index is 5, and I'm going to count until I hit 8. So 5, 6, 7, 8. And now I'm plugging in my index in 2 different places. Okay. So when m is 5, m plus 1 is 6. Negative 1 to the 6th, well, if it's an even power, that's going to be positive 1 times m is 5. 1 times 5 is 5. Plus, when m is 6, that would make m plus 1 7. Negative 1 to the 7th is negative, and then m is still 6. So we're adding a negative 6. I'm going to just write that as minus a 6. Plus, when m is 7, m plus 1 is 8. Negative 1 to the 8th is positive 1 times m is 7. So we're adding 7. And when m is 8, m plus 1 is 9. Negative 1 to any odd power is negative 1. So we're going to be getting a negative number, and m was 8. So we're adding negative 8. I'm just going to write that as subtracting 8. Okay. So we've got 5 minus 6 plus 7 minus 8. That's going to give me a negative 2 as my final answer.